Hello, everyone, and welcome to the special film of our annual barometer of customer experience performance, the X Index. Every year, this study surveys over 50,000 consumers across 9 markets, evaluating the interactions those consumers have with brands throughout their journey and prioritizing the ones they consider to be most important. This year's report discovered that the growing trend towards a more conscious consumer also rings true when we consider the experience they have with brands. In fact, how seamless, simple, and effective the customer journey is still vitally important. But in 2022 and into the future, a brand's ability to fulfill our expectations as citizens has grown to be of greater importance. A brand's image, whether it engenders trust and how it behaves towards its employees, its community, and the planet, are all growing in significance in our buying decisions. I've been joined this morning by a brilliant team of experts from right across our global Havas CX network to discuss those findings and to hopefully help you get to the bottom of what they mean for your business or brand. We are spread right across the world for today's conversation. In the UK, I'm joined by Havas CX Global Head of Data, Ol Yanis. Jessica Chaplow, Havas Media UK's Head of E-commerce, joins us from Dubai. And in Paris, we have Sebastian Udes, Chief Strategy Officer for our CX specialist, BETC Full 6. I'd like to start by asking Sebastian, whose team are behind the research, to take us through those findings.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for the intro. So as you mentioned, this year, the most striking learning is that customer experience is actually becoming a citizen experience. So here are the 4 learnings that we have drawn from the research to create a more sustainable and inclusive experience. So the first one, as you mentioned, is to commit to trust. In every country this year, the main discriminating criterion is I trust the brand. It represents 31% of the X Index in France and up to 42% for pure player brands in the UK. So creating trust with consumers means delivering on your commitment even in times of crisis like the one we are living today. For instance, Chewy in the US, the famous pet care retailer, earned the top score on trust because they launched telehealth consultation for pets. They called Connect with a Vet when people were not allowed to leave their homes. So that's the first one. The second one is to build an experience that includes everyone, and the user experience is inclusive and welcoming to all, makes it to the top 10 of discriminating criteria in the UK and in France. So on this criteria, Cult Beauty earns top score because they committed to breaking taboos on menopause for women, for instance. Another way to be inclusive is also to build a sense of community. That is really important, especially in China. And NIO, for instance, the Chinese electric car brand, is recognized by its consumers thanks to its app that connects users between one another. Third thing, always be of service. Customer service is now defined by the speed of the reaction to the customer demands. Customer service reacts promptly to my requests, is actually discriminating in 6 of the 9 countries that we have studied. So reacting quickly has never been so essential because consumers have become time intolerant. Nubank, for instance, the top fintech brand in Brazil, gets the best score on their speed of response to their customers' demands. And the last one, we called it Provide for the Age of Extra, because when it comes to satisfying customers, going the extra mile is essential for brands. So providing extra attention is actually a criteria that is discriminating in 5 countries, the US, Brazil, Spain, and 2 other ones. So meaning you always have to ask yourself, how can I go beyond the obvious, beyond expectation? What more can I do for my customers? All these points show that trust, sustainability, and inclusivity are demanded by customers, and pledges are simply not enough anymore. They demand action, and this is what the X Index is about.
So Seb, I'd like to pick up on this question of the citizenship credentials of brands leading more of our buying decisions. How do you see that affecting the work you do for your clients, particularly in the CX space?
So yes, Stephanie, this is indeed becoming more and more important in our work on CX because consumers today don't see a distinction between a brand and a company. So if a company behaves badly, it's going to reflect on the CX the brand delivers on a day-to-day basis. So we actually know, for instance, from our latest prosumer research, that 76% of consumers are ready to boycott a brand that is too intrusive with their data. And Ol is going to speak about that later on. So these are the kinds of questions we raise with our client when we work on customer experience. So what is the best use of data we can have while keeping customers informed and empowered with their choices? What is the sustainability of our experience, especially when it comes to delivery or e-commerce? And how do we make sure that our experience is welcoming to all by giving concrete signs of our commitments to all people? There's more to do because we need to address every expectation from the functional to the more emotional, but it makes the work more exhilarating and it certainly delivers the best results.
Ol, on that issue of trust rising to the top in the report, and it's particularly important when it comes to data and privacy, where do you see the biggest challenges or even the challenges on the horizons for brands and marketers?
So there's a couple of things I'd say on that. The first is that brands need to start realizing that to create trust, you need to understand that it's a privilege to hold the data of your consumers and your customers. It's a privilege to hold that data. Therefore, you need to make sure that you don't misuse it. And by misuse, I don't mean doing something illegal or doing something immoral with the data. What I mean is actually using the data correctly and using the data correctly to create relevant and meaningful experiences. And that comes through the report time and time again in terms of if you're more relevant to me and my experience, the context I'm in, then it's going to be more meaningful and you'll get a better reaction from me and you'll get me more engaged. That's the first point. So respect the fact that you're holding a customer's data because they can take it away tomorrow. The second part I'd like to point out is that brands also need to, having the technology, the data, the processes, all that stuff is not the challenge here. The challenge here is a culture shift. And it's a culture shift for the brand as well as the agencies that the brand works with to understand that whilst creative is definitely still important, the what someone receives in their inbox or what they see in the retail store, but it's also the when they see it, the channel they see it in and why we present it to them. And that is down to the tech and the data. Once brands and agencies start to realize that the tech and the data is as important as the creative, that's when you're going to start seeing a sea change. And the real challenge is getting people enthusiastic in an organization about a topic that is relatively nowhere near as interesting as creative, but get people excited about the power of data and technology when it's combined with creative. And I think that's the challenge, that culture shift.
So I have another one for y'all. We are all aware of the monumental shift to online in terms of buying behavior the last 2 years. I mean, how many of us have walked into stores? But this study found a strong connection between how a brand behaved and delivered during COVID and its success on the barometer. How important is it for brands today to truly understand their customers?
So I think it's obvious and red, right, that a brand needs to understand their customers, and I think we know that. But I think the difference here is that we have to define what understanding means. So understanding the fact that I've bought something from you, and understanding where I got it delivered, and understanding what the next best product that I'm going to buy. That's kind of a given, and companies that aren't doing that now are way behind the curve and they need to catch up. The second part of understand is understanding my context. So where am I? What channels do I like to engage with a particular brand? Those kind of things, or what situation in life am I? That's the second piece, but that is also understanding. But really the key thing, and again, this comes out in the X Index report, the key thing is understanding what interests me, what are my passions, what drives me, whether it's the economy, whether it's the environment, whether it's community, whatever that topic is, if you are able to communicate, when you communicate to me, you take those things into account, you're going to make my experience with you more meaningful. And that means I will react better and I will engage and behave in the way you want me to. But that's the third element of understanding. It's what's meaningful to me, and the X Index shows this in a lot of detail.
Thank you, Jess. What's the role of inclusivity? It's even a hard word to say. Jess, what's the role of inclusivity in e-commerce in particular? The report points to being a discerning factor in markets such as the UK, France, and China. How does that manifest in the work that you're doing?
In the UK, in particular, quality, convenience, and price still very much matter when it comes to customer choice, but factors like sustainability, ethical sourcing, and social responsibility are all increasingly important to how customers are selecting their products and services. And how this is showing up for the ways that we're working with our clients is really through our ability to craft meaningful retail experiences. And the clients that we focus on delivering omnichannel excellence across encompasses this through three core areas, and that's intuitive content, intimate connections, and intelligent context. We've already heard from all the importance of context, but in this realm in particular, context is incredibly important to ensuring diversity is maintained across race and gender. Understanding these three tenets allows us to really work together with our clients to understand and activate retail experiences that truly reflect the audiences we serve.
Thanks. Sebastian, one more for you. These aren't just questions of process or journey, are they? They're really questions of brand. And we know from our ongoing Meaningful Brands research that there's cynicism amongst consumers, that brands across all sectors and in their interactions need to deliver against their promises, or trust gets quickly eroded. What advice would you give brands on how to show up?
So we know that there are actually two big shifts happening since the pandemic when it comes to trusting brands, the brands we shop with every day. So the first one is that consumers have actually realized that they can trust big corporations because big companies means big impact when they decide to change. And that's good news for lots of our clients. When it comes more precisely to the field of CX, there are two things we can do with our client. The first one is to show your commitment to customer service. Customer service is of paramount importance, and you need to be quick to answer customer demands because they live in a world where everything has accelerated. So your company and its representatives should be available 24/7 and be there in the context, as Ol was mentioning, where customers need it the most. I'll take, for instance, Glossier, the beauty brand. Whenever you tag them on Instagram, they are quick to reward you with a heart posted directly in your DMs, and that's quick. Second thing is to always try to go the extra mile. So consumers have become more demanded, so how can you show your commitment? Let me talk again about Chewy, which is number one in our US X Index report. They show their commitments to pet parents through many initiatives. They can send a note of condolences and flowers when they hear about a pet passing away. If they got your order wrong, they give you the option to give it to a local shelter, and then they send the new one right away. That's how you deliver extra attention to very demanding customers today.
That's great. Jess, one of the observations that I found interesting from this report is the suggestion that we're increasingly time intolerant as consumers. It refers specifically to the customer service aspects of the buying experience, but is it also true across the brand, isn't it, when it comes to our patience for media, messages, content, and more?
Thanks to the Amazon effect, if we contextualize this from an e-com standpoint, we tend to define e-commerce convenience really in terms of delivery speed. But when it comes to time intolerance for consumers, this is far from the only factor that can make a difference to customers. Convenience really should encompass the entire customer journey. And that really is about the increasing time poor customers that we see, and the challenges that retailers and brands now are facing have really evolved to a point where they no longer should solely focus on competing with their direct competitors, but now it's really about competing with the last best experience their customers have had.
All right, well, I'm afraid our time has run out here too. What a fascinating conversation. Thank you all for joining from all over the world today. You can request a download of the full X Index report and analysis by visiting our website or by getting in touch with any of us directly. In the meantime, thank you all for watching.
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye.